Board of Commissioners here in Gaston County. My name is Chad Brown. I serve as chairman of the board as well as commissioner of the Riverbend Township. I would like to welcome our viewers and thank Spectrum Cable and AT&T for making this possible for our citizens, for our television audience and live streaming audience. I would like to present your Gaston County Commissioners, beginning on my far right.
Alan Fraley, Cherryville Township.
Tracy Fellbeck, Dallas Township.
Ronnie Worley, South Point Township.
Good evening, Bob Hovis, Crowders Mountain Township.
Kim Johnson, Gastonia Township.
Good evening, Tom Kigger, Gastonia Township.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We will now stand for the pledge and invocation. The invocation will be given by Commissioner and Vice Chair Hovis, and the pledge will be led by Ms. Johnson. Commissioner Johnson.
If you all will, please bow with me. Gracious Father, we come to you tonight to take care of the business of Gaston County. But Father, we would not be correct if we didn't recognize the ill that is taking place in this country. The additional school shootings today, Father, in Texas are just something that we as a society cannot sustain. We as adults and mature individuals need to understand that we have to be a part of changing this outline of thinking that a gun corrects everything. It does not. The shooting here in our own state is another example of violence that doesn't show any purposeful mean of addressing individuals' issues. Father, we as a country need to come together and recognize and support these individuals who are so sickened, who thinks that a gun is a right to changing the world. It is not. Father, it's our responsibility as elected officials to stand up and expect individuals to stop this level of hatred. If we do not, then who will? Father, it's our wishes that the world that we live in understand and have difference of opinion, but it doesn't need to lead to gun violence. Father, we ask your guidance. We ask your prayers on our nation, and we especially lift up these individuals and these families who've been affected by this total tragedy. Father, we are a God-fearing country, and it is our wishes that this violence cease. These individuals need to reach out to all the governmental agencies that can help them with their concerns, their mental stress. We have many agencies. We spend millions of dollars every year to address this type of anguish. We need to understand our neighbors. If they're troubled, if they're issued, we need to intervene. We need to step out and be a part of that solution. Father, we ask your blessing to this meeting, and we ask your blessing on our lives as we try to live in your path every day. Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to take the time to recognize elected officials in the room from Cleveland County Commissioner Kevin Gordon and our own Sheriff Alan Cloninger. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for, that was for me, I hope. The next item on the agenda is public hearing. Tonight we will hold a public hearing for the proposed FY23 Gaston County budget, and following the hearing, the board will consider adoption of the budget. Before we go into public hearing, let me outline the rules of procedure. Citizens wishing to make comment will be recognized by the chair and then requested to step to the microphone for their comments. Citizens will state their name and address for the record. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Questions shall be directed to the chair for response. The chair shall rule on all points of order. Do I have a motion to go into public hearing?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Hovis, seconded by Commissioner Worley. Any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous, Madam Clerk. I'm going to ask the county manager for any comments prior to taking citizens' comments. Dr. Eagle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, and I'll just be very brief in my comments. I wanted to remind everyone that the budget presented on May 10th is based on meeting service delivery demands and our unprecedented inflation. The growth in our county is also unprecedented, and the budget positions the county to manage this growth. And I appreciate the dialogue that has occurred since the presentation, and I look forward to implementing your approved budget. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any citizens wishing to make comments on this issue at this time? Seeing none, any questions from the Board of Commissioners at this time? Mr. Giger,
Questions regarding the budget?
we can do that now if you'd wish.
I mean, is that what you're,
Well, we're just right here's now questions
Okay.
regarding the manager's presented budget, yes.
well, I want to question a couple of the items in the budget.
I
If
I
could
think
do
that, you gonna do that now, or?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
We can do it
Chair.
now, or you can do it during the discussion, probably easier for you if you'd like to do it closer to the time.
Sure.
That we vote, if that's easier for you.
That's what I was asking. Are we
Yeah.
at
And
that
it's just
point
here,
now?
just more on what the proposed budget, if anybody, basically just a public hearing session that's open for anybody to ask a comment. Seeing no other comments, I will now ask to close the public hearing. Do I have a motion to motion made by Commissioner Hovis, seconded by Commissioner Kieger. Any questions? All in favor? It is unanimous, Madam Clerk. Public hearing is now closed. The first item we have on, we need to address is the county commissioners are looking to eliminate the parking fees at the courthouse. I have a motion made by Commissioner Philbeck, seconded by
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Worley. Any discussion? Commissioner Philbeck.
the motion is to eliminate the parking fees at the courthouse effective July the 1st, 2022.
Motion is made by Commissioner Philbeck, seconded by Commissioner Worley. Any discussion?
I do.
Commissioner Johnson.
I just want to say, when this was passed in 2007, I didn't agree with it as a county employee. I always wondered why our citizens would have to pay to park in Gaston County parking lot, because we're in a big urban city. And the other thing is, with the state and county employees parking there, that's going to be an issue still, because a lot of them did pay to park. So there needs to be some type of policy set up to where they will allow public to park there. The other thing is, we do have money from all the fees that we've received over the years, and I would suggest to the county manager to take those fees and apply it to the maintenance of that parking lot to keep it up. And that way we're not taking money from elsewhere to manage the parking lot now.
Mr. Hovis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Ms. Johnson's comments. I think we probably need to create a space in the parking that's only available for citizens who are doing business in the courthouse with a time limit for parking. That way, people can come into the courthouse, take care of their business, and do what's necessary, and they don't find themselves in competition with individuals who are in our courthouse doing either state work or county work. I just think we need to recognize this is a citizens building and do what we can to provide them access, easier access if possible, taking two sections or whatever and painting them with blue lines or orange lines or whatever we want to do, so it's recognized that it's not for employees or for people who are working for attorneys' offices to be there. It's for citizens. And I don't know how we police that. That's another conversation in itself. That's why, we've talked about this, and this board's been 100% unanimous about removing the fees, but I think just to lift it without some level of organization would be a challenge to others, and other people would take advantage of it. I don't want our citizenry, our people who pay taxes and who've paid for this building and paid for many other public buildings, to be taken advantage of. That's my comment.
Mr. Philbeck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is for the county attorney. One, could I change that motion, or would I need to amend it? I actually agree with Commissioner Johnson, but if we don't actually include that in a motion, then it don't happen. I think what I would like to do is make the motion to eliminate the fees, the parking fees at the courthouse effective July the 1st, 2022, and also use the funds that are in that account for the maintenance and upkeep of that parking lot. Do I need to amend that motion to say that?
Yeah, Commissioner Philbeck, you can do that with the motion that's
Okay.
pending right now.
That is my motion.
And I would second it.
I want to make a comment, just in, going back to Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Hovers, and then Commissioner Philbeck's. I would like to see that space for the jurors, because they're doing actual work there. Whether they get a piece of paper already that states that, maybe they get it a different color, and we work with whoever the jury coordinator is for that, to see if that were to be a part of that. I would also like to have the discretionary of the manager to bring back, I think we just paved that parking lot recently, which I think within the last year, so I don't think the paving part is imminent right now. I'm not saying we don't use it for that, but I'm just saying I would rather her be able to have it at her discretion of what we're using it for here on the property, if that appeases the board. But I did want to make sure we put that into what was out there if anybody has an issue, not just because we just paved it, I think, in the last 6 to 8 months, if I'm not mistaken, twice.
It's my understanding it's been repaved in the last
Twice,
year.
because they had to fix it. So, anyway, I just want to put that out there. I'll let anybody else who has discussion on this go forward. Right now, we have a motion from Commissioner Philbeck to eliminate the fees being said by June 1st with the discretion for the manager to put that into effect, if that's okay. I'm just trying
July
to.
1st.
July 1st. Eliminating those fees, trying to find something within that for jurors or people doing business is what Bob asked for, and let her get back to that, if that's okay, before the next meeting. Is that okay with?
That's not the motion.
Right,
The
okay.
motion, Mr. Chairman, on the table is to eliminate the parking fees effective July the 1st, 2022, and use all the funds in that account, not the interest, but all the funds that are in the account for the maintenance of the parking lot. That would be the motion. Now, the manager is going to have discretion to get what she needs by July the 1st, and the board will also have plenty of time and discretion to look at whatever else you would like to do. But that's the motion on the table.
All right. I will now call for the vote. All in favor? All those opposed? It is unanimous, Madam Clerk. Next item is Commissioner Opus' order to levy collect the ad valorem tax for the Gaston County Fire Protection Service District. Approve the FY23 Fire Department budget allocation and set the FY23 rates for the Long Shoals and South Gastonia Fire Protection Districts to 0. Do I have a motion on this matter? Motion made by Commissioner Hovis, seconded by Commissioner Worley. Any discussion? All in favor? It is
That was up and down.
okay, unanimous, Madam Clerk. I'm sorry. I just was looking the other way. And upon adoption of this tonight, we have a June 14th special meeting scheduled for 3 other Lowell, Ranlow, and High Shoals to levy those pieces for them joining. So just wanted to make that mention. The next item is the county FY23 Gaston County budget and Gaston County tax rate. I'd like to make the motion to approve the FY23 budget with a 2-cent tax rate reduction from .83 to .81 cents and eliminate the courthouse parking fees from that particular issue and give the manager discretion to revise the budget ordinance accordingly.
I would second that motion.
Motion made by myself, seconded by Commissioner Worley. Any discussion? Commissioner Hovis.
Trying to understand your comment about parking lot fees. You mean the income
In the,
is projected?
in the manager's FY, okay, just want to make sure.
You just said eliminate the revenue. I'm with you.
I apologize.
You were, I thought you'd gone around circles. I'm lost.
there any
It was
other-
included in the fee structure in my recommendation, therefore that's.
Is there any other discussion at this time? Mr. Keeger?
Thank you. Basically, three things I just want to bring to the board's attention. Two, it's serving as an advocate. First, for the board that you've put me on for many years, Gaston College. You know, they've grown by leaps and bounds. We're applying for, Alan, how much money are we looking at? 60 million? 60 million to have a one-of-a-kind facility at Gaston College that'll be in unison with State University, the state of North Carolina. They've got a tremendous amount of backlog projects as far as maintenance. And I'm sure it's similar to the school situation, the county school system, where they're having to take some of the capital money that we give them and put it in towards operating because they're not getting funded properly from the state. But if the board would, you know, just indulge me to ask staff, the management team, to possibly, after this process is over, to maybe revisit. We will be seeing a great deal more money coming in from the increase in property taxes. So I'm not asking to do anything now. I'm just asking that maybe staff sit down and rehash some of the budget with the college. And also, I noticed back 2 weeks ago when we went over the budget request and the manager's recommendations, one thing that just stood out at me, and I've taken some time to speak with the folks over at GEMS, their responsibility has grown. Our population has grown. The subdivisions have grown. And I don't know if they need 29 new people, but they requested 29 people. And in my heart of hearts, I believe they're so overworked often, especially when there are many traumatic things going on around the county at the same time. As I asked with the college, I'd ask management to, again, maybe sit down and relook the GEMS budget. That said, I would like to just make a couple comments on the tax reduction of 2 cents. A couple of weeks ago, several of us talked about at least a 3.5 cent decrease to get us under 80 cents. And, you know, looking at all the numbers, right now our fund balance is around 74, 76 million, give or take. The unappropriated monies that aren't geared to is somewhere near 20 million. If we tried to get to that 3.5 cent reduction to get to 79 cents, that would be $7 million that we would take from the fund balance, but it would be so very temporary because this year, or last year, we took in about 175 million in property tax funds. If we're going to get an average of 20%, that's about $35 million more we're going to take in than we have previously. So if we took that 7 million, people are going to start writing checks at the end of the summer as soon as they get their bills. We'll replenish that money. I have no fear it's going to jeopardize our bond ratings. That, you know, we're going to get 34, 35 more million than we did this year. I don't know why we just don't give the reduction now and hopefully next year another one. But you know, I'd love to amend that part of the budget, and I would make a motion if there would be a second, and I think there'd be a second, tell you the truth, and maybe even a third, hopefully a fourth. But to take in 34 million more and be afraid that it's going to jeopardize us in some way, shape, or form, in the following year we're going to take that much more money in, and the following year, 2 cents is 4 million. I don't know why we can't go 7. So that's it, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the time. But when the time comes to, I'd like to offer an amendment to the budget whenever that time
Are
is
you making that in the
appropriate.
form of a motion?
I would like to make a motion that the tax rate be reduced by 3.5 cents versus the 2 that was recommended by the chair.
And that is also the same, so you're just taking that amendment from the 83 to the 79.5 number with no fund balance, no, that's taking the courthouse parking fees, the exact same thing?
Just having to
taking
take
that
it out of the fund balance.
Okay. Is there a
Because that'll be
second?
replenished in months.
Is there a second?
I'll second that for the vote.
Any discussion?
I got discussion.
Commissioner Johnson?
You know, I'm in agreement with the county manager's budget, what she recommended. I mean, we have our faith in her to give us the budget. And I believe we should listen to what the county is telling us. We're in an economic crisis that's coming, and we don't know what's gonna happen next year. We don't know what's gonna happen the rest of this year. They're saying gas could be $6 a gallon by summer. So the county's already absorbing all that cost, and who knows how much more they're gonna absorb for all the inflation. So when you talk about taking $7 million out of the fund balance that is finally up to $19 million, I think is ludicrous, because at the end of the day, you still have to replenish that money. And we have a AA bond rating. Why even take a chance on not getting a AAA for doing that? At the end of the day, a savings account is for a rainy day. A rainy day is gonna come soon. And I think we as a county need to be prepared for it. So I'm not for a tax decrease right now. I've sit here as a county employee for 30 years, and our employees have took over 160 hours of furlough during that time. They had their medical insurance for new hires taken away in 2005. In 2001, all of their furlough was taken, not furlough, excuse me, longevity was taken from county employees. So, you know, when I sit back and think of all these years, poor decisions led to the employees being hurt. Our pay is finally where it needs to be to retain and be competitive in the market we're in now. So I just don't want to take a chance on any of that happen to our employees again, because I've seen it. And as a commissioner, I will make decisions based on what is best for the county and the citizens of this county and the employees, not for political or personal gains at the end of the day. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Worley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, first of all, I just want to say to Dr. Eagle and to Matt and the entire budget staff that worked on our budget, I appreciate you. I have 100% trust in the budget that you gave us. And I know we've looked at this. We've had substantial increases in property tax of 7%, sales tax 11%, other taxes up 4%. Quite a few of the revenue streams are up. And taking everything that Commissioner Johnson just said, I don't want to impact our employees. I don't want to impact the furtherance of what we're doing as a county, services we are delivering to our citizens, ultimately the customers of Gaston County. I want to make sure that there is no impact to this. I don't want to take money from any other departments. School funding is important. The college, as Commissioner Keeger, is important. But the 2-cent decrease is less than 2% of the entire budget, about 1.5%, actually. It's a modest decrease. I think it is symbolic to the citizens of Gaston County that we are continuing to provide excellent service, a commitment to our employees that we value you, and a modest decrease of 2 cents on the rate is less, as was stated, was $4 million. But I do not agree with taking money from our fund balance. I believe that would jeopardize our bond rating. We have the AA+ rating. We're going to the bond market again next year for school construction. But I believe a 2-cent decrease will not impact any of our services, none of our employees, but still show our citizens that we value them as taxpayers, and we're reducing their bills slightly. Wish we could do more, and next year with the revow, we will look at the tax rate obviously again, but I'm in agreement that the 2 cent is prudent to do at this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Hovis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may, I just have a question for Mr. Keeger first. You said we're going to have $34 million in new revenue next year?
What I said is that,
That's
and
what
I
you said.
confirmed this through the finance office, that we took in about $172 million in property tax last year. If we're gonna have a 20% increase in property values, we're gonna receive 20% more money. Which
And when-
10% of 170 is 17, and twice
And-
is 34.
When is this 20% in property values going to be affected on personal property?
Bills start going out in July?
No.
Not,
When do bills go out?
February of next year.
Okay.
February of next year, the citizens will receive their revaluation rate of personal property. Those bills will go out September of 23.
My mistake, you're right, you're correct.
Of 23. So there's no new windfall of tax. And I'd love to have Mr. Roden come to the mic, please, to tell me that I understand this correctly, because I don't follow the math. And I'm not questioning you, Mr. Keeger, I'm just trying to understand.
The next fiscal year will have that increase.
That's right. That's in the future. That is not this budget year. This is budget year 22, 23. We won't see the effect of that change until after January in 24, when those taxes are starting to be paid. We'll only get 6 months of that for that year, but that won't affect this budget year at all. And am I correct, Mr. Roden? Please, I don't want somebody to think that I'm beating anybody up, but correct me?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
That will have no effect in this budget year.
Correct.
Correct. So that math doesn't hunt, from my understanding. And I certainly have the full confidence of the budget staff and the manager's recommended budget. And I understand the need, the want to, but I'm looking at need to. I'm with Ms. Johnson. I think we need to stand by the manager's recommended budget, because next year, the 20% number that Mr. Keeger is talking about is extremely low. Residential property values are probably going to go up in excess of 30%. 30%. We just had one for 7 years and it went up 21. This is in 4 years, it's probably going to go up 30. And the conversation was several months ago, or one of our other meetings, that we just not even do revaluation. Well, we can't do that, because the Local Government Commission, which oversees our ability to finance and run Gaston County, has already looked at us, and we already received notification that we're behind the baseline of where we need to be in property valuations in order to run a business. And the county is a business. It'd be ludicrous to do that. Plus, 80% of the money has already been spent to put us in a position to be ready for next year's valuations to go out in February. So that, to me, that's just totally counterintuitive. We talk about increasing funds for Gaston College. We talk about increasing funds for gyms because of backlog, things that we haven't done in the past. But yet tonight we're talking about taking $7.3 million, not $7.3 million, 2 cents. That would turn around, and we're just kicking that can further down the road by saying we're going to do more with less. I just don't understand it. We're going to need to try to make citizens whole next budget year, without question, as much as we can, by taking the budget. I mean, we achieved something this last budget year we haven't done in 50 years. We had no tax increase. We took no money out of fund balance, and we had a balanced budget. First time in 50 years. I'd like for us to do that 2 times while I'm on this board. We may not ever be able to do it again, because when we go back and look at the 23-24 budget, I'd like for people to listen to me, if you don't mind, gentlemen. Can we listen to each other? I listen to y'all. I want you to listen. I don't want conversation going on amongst the board.
Let's just.
That's fine.
let him
You don't
speak,
have
let
to.
him speak. Please just speak to the.
Mr. Chairman, as
No,
decorum, he
please
is to
just-
address
okay, just
you,
please.
not
Okay,
us.
Please. He'll address me, that's the way we'll take it.
Thank you.
I'll take control.
Thank you. It wasn't meant to be insulting, gentlemen. But all I'm saying is I think the board needs to listen to where we are And if you don't, that's fine. I'm only one vote, and I'm certainly not going to vote for a 2 cent. I'm not voting for any decrease in the budget, because next year, the 23-24 budget, when the residents are going to receive this bill of their property increases in February of 2023, their bills will come out in September of 2023, and they'll be payable by December the 31st of 2023. That's when we're going to need to have the ability, whoever sits on this dais is going to have to sit here and figure out, okay, for 4 years, from when we did the last reval to this reval, we've got a percentage for inflation. And it's going to be somewhere between 6 and 9%. I think that's an accurate number to pass on to the property owners. When we turn around and take that 6 to 9% out, then every single dollar after whatever that percentage is needs to go back to the citizens in terms of a tax reduction. We need to give it to them then, because these numbers are going to be astronomical. It may not be revenue neutral in terms of what they actually write a check for, but we need to hold that in abeyance. We don't need to put them on the end of a yo-yo. It's okay, this year if you have a $150,000 home and we reduce the tax 2 cents, that means you're going to get $53.80 one time this year. I don't see that as significant. I think I understand the purpose, and I understand trying to be cognizant of the homeowners, but at the same time, to put them on the end of the yo-yo and we're down this year, we're up next year, I just don't think we're sending the message. If we have needs at Gaston College, if we have needs at gyms, we need to address those. This board, not this board, but boards in the past have done that, and we kicked the can down the road. We've got ourselves in a great position. We have a manager and a staff who's done a wonderful job. This budget increase adds no additional people except for where we're absorbing the inspections department by taking over the services from the city of Gastonia and making a one-stop shop for building inspection and building permits with the county and the county alone. We're not adding any positions. The manager, they've worked extremely hard, and I fully plan on supporting her budget recommendation as it is. Thank you.
Let me just reiterate where we are right now with the amendment on the table. No problem. The very first motion was made to approve the FY23 budget with a 2 cent tax reduction from 83 to 81, with the elimination of the courthouse parking fees, giving the manager discretion to advise and using her discretion on the budget ordinance accordingly. Commissioner Keeger amended that motion to make that a 79.5, which is a 3.5 cent tax reduction.
79.5.
79.5 cent overall budget calculation. Is there any other discussion that needs to happen on this before we call for the vote? Commissioner Philbeck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Couple things. I will vote for the 2 cent tax cut, but I'll also vote for the 3.5, and I would cut it even more if anybody wants to. Government is not a business. It's not to turn a profit. Government is to be the steward of services and taxpayer dollars. According to a recent Gazette article, no offense to the new lady, but I don't really believe the Gazette a lot, so if I'm wrong, somebody tell me, but I'm going to take it for its face value. The county government's increasing close to 10% spending. Our property tax that we budgeted for last year is $169 million. We're projected to bring in $180 million. That's just projections. Probably going to be a little bit more than that. So let's say that's 11. Your sales tax is going to be even more as far as projections are concerned. I don't know why we cannot cut the tax rate to 3.5 or even more. I think there's several ways to do it. Normally in the past, when we talk about cutting the tax rate, people want to throw up, well, you can cut this budget and never touch county employees. And I'm going to give you a couple ways to do that. Now, you may not agree by doing it this way, but there's several ways to cut this budget. We got close to $40–50 million from state and federal government funds. We have major increases in sales tax and property tax. We're increasing spending by close to 10%. I think it is ludicrous, in my opinion, to say we can't cut the tax rate. I don't believe that is founded in basic math. There's several ways to do it. One, you could use fund balance. A lot of folks don't like that, so okay, don't use fund balance. We have a project on the books to do the Emergency Management Center, to do the design work. That is $7 million that we're using ARPA funds to do. We could put that off 1 year, and cut the tax rate 3.5 and it not affect anything else in this budget at all. Just moving that to next year. Not only that, inflation is at an all-time high. So any type of design work or any of these capital projects that we're doing, you might as well tack on 20, 30, in some cases 40% more that you're going to pay for that right now because inflation. So even if you take out pushing for a tax cut, I think it would be beneficial just being a good steward, pushing that capital project off a year, because I just believe you could save money, even if you don't agree about the tax cut. You could also take the projection, okay, that's two ways. Here's third. You could also take the projection that you're having in property tax, where we budgeted for 169, but we're projecting close to 80. We could use that to fund the 3.5. You could also partially and maybe fully do this exact same thing with the sales tax. So there are 4 different ways that you can cut this rate 3.5 cents without affecting, really, in my mind, anything else in the budget. And here's a novel idea. We could cut spending. Nobody's talked about that. So I think there's several ways to do it. I would support the 3.5. If that doesn't pass, which I don't think it's going to pass, I would definitely support the 2. But there are several ways to cut this budget. And I want to talk just a minute about the revow that we're going to be having. It has been suggested, well, we'll just do it then. Well, I would make the argument that the only true, well, it's not my argument, Commissioner Fraley said it at the last meeting, I'll definitely give him credit for it. The only true decrease that our citizens are going to see when they actually write a check for property tax is probably if we cut this budget. Because once you do the revow, even if you bring it to revenue neutral and cut it tremendously, the majority of our citizens are still going to pay more taxes than they did the year before. Now, I don't know where y'all come from, but that don't sound like a cut to me if I'm paying more. So I think now's the time to do it. I think there are plenty of ways to do it. You don't have to agree with that. But to say there are not ways to cut this budget, that's not true. And you can do it without really even harming the budget. And if you really want to get into it, there's a lot of spending I think could be cut too. But I would settle with that. And again, if that doesn't pass, I will definitely support the 2%. And that's my 3.5 cents. Thank you.
I'll take the final word then before we vote. Mr. Fraley.
Yeah, I'm just going to take just a moment because I agree with everything Commissioner Philbeck just said, and I can support the 3.5. Our citizens are getting killed at the pump. They're getting killed at the grocery store and everywhere else. This is 1 year we absolutely can cut it, and we should cut it. And I'll support the 3.5 cut. If that doesn't go, I'll support the 2. And I appreciate the work the manager and the staff and everybody's done on this budget. And I appreciate you, Mr. Chairman, digging in and helping find a way to hopefully negotiate a way for us to get this budget passed. Hopefully there'll be 4 people that'll come in there at some point. Thank you.
I'll take the final word. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, ladies. I do want to say this. We worked hard on this budget. The manager saw what she thought was a budget. We pay her professional dollars for professional answers. And thank you and your staff for the hard work and diligence that you put into it. It is very well noted, especially from myself and this group up here. I challenged the manager and her staff to find a number that was comfortable. I heard from every one of you. I put it out in open text or email to say, hey, I want to let you know we need to work harder on this budget. I think we can do it. You all came back with different ideas, and I appreciate that. I'm very thankful for the work. And I went to the manager, and I said, tell me where we can find it. It started at 1. We came to 2. Then all of a sudden, 3.5 just doesn't sit well with me. It's not that we can't. We could go 10. I would love to cut this 10 cent. I think we could do it next year. I think after reevaluation is not something that we set. Reevaluation is what's your evaluation of what's going on inside of our county. So I don't want everybody to think that we are setting something that's setting something up for next year. We're not. We're setting it up for right now. We can cut this 2 cent. I've taxed the manager with making sure everything. That's why it does say in there that with the manager's budget ordinance would be at the manager's discretion as part of my motion. And the reason being, it doesn't have to be off the taxpayer's back. It doesn't have to be off of the employees' backs. We pay her professional dollars to do professional things. And I think we need to let her take her time and do that. My motion was, just reiterating, was for a 2 cent tax decrease. Commissioner Kieger amended to make it a 3.5, which we'll be voting on first. It'll be the 3.5, just so everybody knows where we're going. All right, I'll call for the vote. All for the 3.5, which Commissioner Kieger amended. All in favor? All not in favor? Motion fails, Madam Clerk. We'll now go back to the 2 cent, which I'll make the motion again just so for reiteration for you, Ms. Donna, to approve the FY23 budget for a 2 cent tax rate reduction from 83 cents to 81 cents and the elimination of the courthouse parking fees, and give the manager discretion to revise the budget ordinance accordingly. Is there any discussion? All in favor? All the not in favor? I'm sorry, I lost my words. It is 5-2, Madam Clerk. I apologize for my wording. Now we're going to take a 10-minute recess to get the ordinance in place, and we'll come back in 10 minutes, and that'll be at 6:50. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We're back in regular session. Dr. Eagle has provided the board with a revised budget ordinance that reflects the budget and the tax rate that was approved earlier. Dr. Eagle, do you have any additional comments at this time, ma'am?
I do not. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'll
Thank
make
you.
that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made for the revised ordinance of the FY23 budget made by Commissioner Hovis, seconded by, Commissioner Philbeck, seconded by Commissioner Kieger. Any discussion? Commissioner Hovis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With the manager having gone back and taken the action to back up the budget ordinance to reflect the board's earlier vote, which was unanimous, was done by majority vote, I will approve the budget ordinance because the budget ordinance is important to be done. I have no problem doing that. But my point about the opposition to that is where we find ourselves next year. So when we're back at this time next year, we'll have further conversation. And I hope I don't have to say I told you so. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Have a motion made by Commissioner Philbeck, seconded by Commissioner Kieger. All in favor? It is unanimous, Madam Clerk. Thank you. This concludes tonight's budget deliberations. Approval of the business agenda. Are there any revisions to the business agenda that need to be, items that need to be pulled at this time? Seeing none, do I hear a motion to approve the business agenda as?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Kieger, seconded by Commissioner Hovis. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, give me just a minute, please. I need to look at, you're talking about approving the consent agenda?
The business agenda.
Well, that would be the consent
That it
agenda.
will be the business agenda that I'm reading off from, sir.
That's
Okay.
just the whole
Okay.
thing.
You're right, you're right. Vote, let's roll.
This is where you pull it. All in favor? It is unanimous, Madam Clerk. Our next item is citizens' recognitions. A portion of the board's agenda is set aside for the purpose of allowing citizens the opportunity to offer comments, suggestions. The comment period is intended to require the commission or staff to not answer any questions or provide a response. Questions requiring response shall be answered as soon as possible through the county commissioner's office, at the manager's office. Citizens' recognition will be limited to 1 hour, 3 minutes tonight. As I call your name, please step to the podium, state your name and address. The first citizen to speak tonight, Mr. Stephen Crane. Mr. Crane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, commissioners, staff, and a few citizens. I suppose we're all citizens. I'm here tonight representing the Continuum of Care, the COC, that works with homeless individuals. My role, where I live in Belmont, Fort Ferris Avenue. My role is the executive director of Our Neighbors. I gave you all an ink pen to remember me by tonight. We've been around since 2003. We work in affordable housing. We have lots of agenda items, lots of needs in our community, competing needs, working through. Most basic of those is housing, affordable housing, working from homeless to home, to stable housing. People can be in homes but not stable. And that is exactly what I want to always have you keep in mind as you're making decisions and having conversations in this whole budget process, taxing process, strategic planning process, and reporting back to the community. The homes are very, very important from the standpoint of what is affordable. We've had what used to be the Gaston Chamber, now the Gaston Business Association meetings over the years where you get together at the beginning of the year to talk about the different agenda items, whether it's economic development or, in this case, housing. We've met as groups, and a couple of years ago, somebody threw out a number of $300,000 of being an affordable house. For whom? And I want you to use that pen and take your own salary, multiply it by 12, and then multiply that by 0.3. And if you're paying more in an annual basis for your house, you're cost burdened. We have people in our community who have to do that every day, every week, to decide which bills to pay. So on behalf of the Continuum of Care And also, Gaston Vision 2040, please keep housing as part of your agenda and affordable housing. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Crane. The next item is the approval of the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Worley, seconded by Commissioner Fraley. Any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous, Madam Clerk. I want to point out that a couple important proclamations in the month of May were adopted under tonight's consent agenda. Memorial Day proclamation and a proclamation to recognize the month of May as Drug Court Month. Seeing no items were pulled from the agenda, we'll move forward. There were no items added by the majority. Appointments, Commissioner Fraley.
Two, Mr. Chairman, both reappointments, Gaston Community Action Board of Trustees, Ms. Sherry Feimster, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, Mr. Richard Franks.
I'll second that. All in favor? Unanimous, Madam Clerk. Commissioner Philbeck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make several appointments, all in one motion. Reggie Horton to the Animal Care and Enforcement Advisory Board. Mr. James Burgess to Region F Aging Advisory Committee. And Mr. Daniel F. Stires Jr. to the Workforce Development Board. That is all, Mr.
Second.
Chairman.
Seconded by Commissioner Kieger. All in favor? Unanimous, Madam Clerk. Commissioner Worley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have one Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Alex Ormaza has requested reappointment, and I make that a motion.
I'll second that. All in favor? It is unanimous, Madam Clerk. Commissioner Hovis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have one reappointment, Mr. Richard Randall to the Workforce Development Board, sir.
I'll second that. All in favor? It's unanimous, Madam Clerk. Commissioner Johnson.
I have one reappointment to Workforce Development Board. It's Mr. Greg Smith.
I will second that. All in favor? It is unanimous, Madam Clerk. Commissioner Kieger.
Chad Duncan, reappointment to Parks and Rec. Also, Mr. Scott Pagan, and to the Workforce Development Board, Linda McConnell.
I will second that. All in favor? It is unanimous, Madam Clerk. I have vacant appointments for the full board, and I'll do those right now. Equalization and Review, Ms. Chelsea Tarbush to the Interim Tax Director, effective June 3rd, 2022. Seconded by Commissioner Philbeck. Any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous, Madam Clerk. I will now put the 4 positions into availability. Out of 6, Andrew Sipcar, James Julian, Maureen O'Keefe, and Rebecca Meyerwald, all to be on the Equalization and Review Board.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Worley. All in favor? That is unanimous, Madam Clerk. The next one is Partners Behavioral Health and Management Partner, Ms. Karen Weichert, Assistant County Manager. This to be effective July 1st, 2022.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Hovis. All in favor? It is unanimous, Madam Clerk. Moving right along, reports. Commissioner Fraley.
None, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Philbeck.
None, but I would like, if possible, if Mr. Crane, who got up and spoke at some point, could meet with the county manager. I don't know if y'all have had an opportunity to, have y'all had an opportunity to meet?
We're on the 2040
Good
Vision
job.
steering team together, so we have conversed.
Okay, well, I'd like an opportunity, or maybe for all 3 of us to sit down. I know a little bit, probably firsthand, about what they
If you could set that up
do.
with Commissioner Philbeck and Mr. Crane.
What?
If you could set that up with you guys, let's work together.
Yep, thank you.
Commissioner Worley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No committee reports tonight, but I would just take a moment to congratulate our EDC and the new announcement of $42 million for the Hans Kissel Corporation to locate in Apple Creek. And I just think that's another great accomplishment from this county and our EDC staff. And so just take that moment to congratulate them and look forward to that groundbreaking on later in June.
Commissioner Hovis.
Mr. Chair, I really have no committee reports, but I would like to reiterate Commissioner Worley's comments about Apple Creek. along with everyone seated at the dais at this point in time, we were all present for the official ribbon cutting and opening of Apple Creek. It certainly has been a huge draw for Gaston County. At the same time, we're going to need to be looking for the next draw because it's filling up in a hurry. It was certainly an honor for us to be there. We had quite a few dignitaries. We had our next to the newest person now in attendance with us, and some folks from the GNT came down and were a part of that ribbon cutting. It was very great to have that event and welcome all of these new businesses and corporate headquarters for U.S. work here at Apple Creek. It's a great opportunity for Gaston County to shine in many, many ways. And the board, I know, is very proud to have been there. Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson,
No reports at this time.
Commissioner Kieger.
Well, they stole my thunder on the EDC, but as our representative on that board, we did have a meeting immediately following that over at Gaston College. And Donnie Hicks and I, the EDC director, for those out there that doesn't know who he is, we had a little conversation before the meeting started. And I sat at this board about 24 years ago when we voted to buy the land where the tech park is. And it's taken us 22 years to basically fill it up. There's one parcel left that Donnie says is iffy for a company to come in. But he's optimistic that we could fill this park up in as little as 3 years right now. So as Mr. Hovis said, we better be on the lookout for the next tract of land. Also, we had a college board meeting yesterday, and I will mention one thing that I think affects all the public safety of our county in all different, whether it's fire, GEMS, police, all law enforcement. There was a report given by the sheriff yesterday, he's on our finance committee, that I believe we were cited by the state, is that correct, Alan, for all kinds of improper ailments going on?
Please.
No, there was only 4 things. Old cars, which we fixed. Some issues of driving tracks involving trees too close, buildings too close, and not having porta johns out there. And then the other was, there's one other involved in new college pistol range at Rankin Lake. There was a tripping hazard that has to be fixed. So as we reported, we're getting the car, we're getting everything fixed. We'll be inspected again, and BLET will not be affected by the reporting system.
Okay. There was one thing I did want to bring up also. The vehicles that the county gave them maybe 5 years ago were, needed to be buried when we gave them to BLET. And you can imagine what they're like now after the kind of treatment they get from firefighters, GEMS truck drivers, police, deputies. We're going to have to start thinking about replacing some of these things. These people's lives are at risk. They're out there learning to drive, and they're learning to drive in something that's 12, 14 years old with 300,000 miles on it falling apart. So, it's just something that we have to realize. We've got to fix it. To be the best, you got to train the best with the best stuff we can get.
Thank you, sir. We should be a little more prudent with the taxpayers' dollars. Just kidding. A little joke, sorry.
Very little.
I wanted to let you know the manager has a meeting with the financial staff and everybody coming over from the college. That is scheduled for this week. And also, Mark, if you will get with your staff and get with the budget and manager sometime in the next future, that way you can fulfill Commissioner Kieger's wishes that he had earlier about trying to discuss some things going forward. I know you do that already, but just want to leave it out there. Seeing no other, this concludes our meeting for tonight. Our next work session is special meeting Tuesday, June 14th at 6 p.m. here in the Harley B. Gaston Public.
Reports?
She don't need a report. She just got a manager. Do you have a report, manager? I'm sorry. Madam Manager, your report, please.
It was just a brief comment. that
Keep going.
We're monitoring the diesel supply disruption potential very closely because that could impact operations, and I'll keep you posted.
Thank you, ma'am. County Attorney's report.
No report, Mr. Chairman.
Taking too long for me. This concludes our meeting for tonight. Our next work session is special meeting Tuesday, June 14th, here in the Harley B. Gaston Public Forum Courthouse. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please telephone our clerk, Donna S. Buff, at 704-866-3196. Good night, Sue. Bell my back.